Today, we're talking about how to utilize AI in your B2B marketing, particularly when it comes to customer insights and gathering that insight. Welcome to the B2B Playbook. We built this channel for small B2B marketing teams who want to drive more revenue for their business. Every week, we're showing you how to create more demand for your brand step by step using our 5Bs framework. So if you're time poor, resource strapped, but you still want to make a big impact on your business, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below so you don't miss an episode. Welcome back to the B2B Playbook. Today, we are discussing how to use AI to gather customer insights and action them to turbocharge your go-to-market strategy. We are into season 7 of the show. We spent seasons 1 to 5 giving away our 5Bs framework for your go-to-market strategy, releasing it step by step. Season 6, we answered a lot of FAQs on building and implementing this strategy. And now we're going to continue to look at it and about how your full funnel strategy should evolve. Go back and listen to these episodes if you haven't already. Kevin, could you please update any new listeners or ones who have listened to us but have forgotten what our 5Bs framework is all about?
Well, listeners, our 5Bs framework covers be ready, which is about deeply understanding your dream customers, be helpful, developing relationships of trust with them, particularly online, be seen, how to amplify that helpful content that you've built in the previous stage and how to focus in on those dream customers even more, be better, how to optimize the whole B2B marketing process that you've built up until that point, and finally, be the best, the advanced strategies and tactics that you can employ that the guys at the bigger end of town are using, and also how to make this process circular and beneficial as a flywheel.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. And as I mentioned, listeners and viewers, today we're talking about how to utilize AI in your B2B marketing, particularly when it comes to customer insights and gathering that insight from your research. We've spoken at length, Kevin, on the importance of understanding your dream customers, truly understanding what's going on in their own heads, how they make buying decisions, what's really important to them, who is involved. But to do the customer research to achieve this, there's a lot of manual work involved, and it takes time to line up all those customer interviews. So often, Kev, it becomes the first thing to fall off the to-do list. And I see it from marketers that we speak to in the B2B incubator. They start with the best of intentions to go through and to do that customer research. And they do end up getting a lot of it done because there's accountability built in there. But it is something that they say they've been meaning to get around to doing, but it just falls off the priority list.
And so today we're going to show you how you can speed up that process and at least augment that process with AI, with the tools that we've seen work well in different stages of that process, without losing the depth that comes from the insights you can draw from it to make it really meaningful. And hopefully that will help stop some of that falling off the to-do list syndrome that we see when it comes to customer interviews and things like that in that stage of discovery. So why is this important? Well, you already know why customer research is so fundamental and foundational to our 5Bs framework and to B2B marketing in general. We've spoken again at length about that already. It all starts with understanding your dream customers rather than guessing their intent and what they want and need from looking at the quantitative data that might be available to you. You just need to speak to them. It's as easy as that. And really it comes down to having qualitative research, especially from interviews. These things can really give you the context to pull those insights that web analytics and other quantitative data just cannot. And without it, without this qualitative data and context and the insights from it, your messaging, your positioning, even your content till at the end of the day could all miss the mark without that insight into what's really going on with your dream customers. But as we said before, even though it's so important, it does take time, and that's where AI comes in and helps. Importantly, it doesn't replace you. You still have to do the hard work, unfortunately, of going through and doing the interviews, of having those conversations with your customers and pulling out the insights, and even checking what AI spits out at the other end when we go through where AI can help you. You still have to review that final result to make sure that the context and the nuance and the insights that are being drawn do in fact align with what you experienced during those customer conversations. And so with all of us in resource-strapped marketing teams that need a hand, now's the perfect time to get AI to help with this process of customer research as well.
Kev, I'm hoping that it enables people to do more customer research because it makes it a little easier. I think a reason why we often hid behind the quantitative data, which is like doing surveys, diving into your analytics, looking at what happened, but it doesn't tell you why. And I think the reason that we did that is because you could easily tie it back to a nice, pretty dashboard, because it's very easy to like aggregate and slice and dice quantitative data. It reduces nicely down to numbers, gives you hard numbers to look at, things to compare month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year. And that was pretty hard to do qualitatively before. Often you'd have to engage someone to do that, or you'd kind of go through qualitative data and you'd get more of a vibe, or you'd have to really look at what people are saying and then reduce what they're saying in the qualitative data to like a checkbox and almost turn it, like reverse engineer it into a survey. But now with things like AI, we can feed in these qualitative insights and we can actually start getting some really helpful results from it and do it in a faster way. And you can start to make it look like those pretty dashboards that you have with your quantitative stuff too, right, Kev?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the important thing is to get back to having that full insight, that full context, so that you have both qualitative data and quantitative data working together with the help of AI. So it's a little bit easier to grab that qualitative data, as George said, as well as what you can currently grab from your quantitative data. Well, having said all that, let's just jump straight into how we see AI being used in that customer research process without losing the depth of insights from that process. So the first step is still to conduct those proper interviews. You still need to have that face-to-face conversation or human-to-human interaction to get through all the questions and to really understand and read between the lines sometimes to see what customers are really thinking. And an AI is not really going to be able to replace that conversation, because there's going to be certain times where things are raised and you have to go down a tangent and probably pry open certain topics a little bit further to get to that insight that you really need. Whereas an AI tool really isn't going to be able to do that for you. They can't really replace the nuance of that human connection in that conversation. We've all had that experience now of trying to ask a few questions with an AI chatbot on whatever site that we're on. Sometimes it's great if there's an article written about that already in the database, in the FAQs that the AI can pull against. But a lot of the times we get frustrated and we kind of don't get the answer that we're looking for. And it's going to be a similar process if you try and automate too much of that customer interview process. You still have to have that conversation first.
That's right. You've got to have that conversation first. If people are going to disclose information to you, it's much easier for people to do that on a human to human basis. I think people are less inclined to give information away otherwise. You want to have that connection. And that's why, Kevin, and I'm not suggesting people should do this, but that's why if you really want to get in contact with the high value potential client that's difficult to speak to, doing something like inviting them to come onto a podcast or co-host a webinar with you or feature in something is a great way to build rapport and then ask those questions that you really want to know afterwards, because you've built that connection. You've given them something, you have that rapport, and now they're more inclined to share that information with you. So I don't think, Kev, I think you're right. I don't think we can rely on AI to go out there and actually have those conversations for us yet. Although I know there are people out there who are trying, right? There are people out there who have built, AI calling agents that go and call people up. They're sounding better and better to try and get some of this information. But look, I haven't found anything that's good enough yet that I would put my trust in, and certainly wouldn't want to use it in fear of tarnishing our brand.
100%, George. I totally agree there. But listeners, the good news is you can use AI tools to record and transcribe these conversations. So gone are the days when you have to sort of type out all the points, listen to it again, and have to transcribe out the main points. You can use tools like Fireflies or Otter, or even like Google's own tools within a Google Meet to transcribe a lot of these conversations and to have the summary points. Just be real careful, because those summaries often miss nuances, often miss points, or misinterpret certain points in their summary. So it's important to have someone go through that process and make sure that the transcriptions are right, the information that's pulled out is right. It's better to lean on the transcript rather than the AI summaries from those transcripts at this stage of that process. If it's more sales conversations, you can use tools like Gong if that's already where you're booking your meetings meetings and potentially having your meetings. Even record things in something like Descript to clean up the transcript later as well. So you can feed a recording into a Descript to get that transcript, which tends to be a little bit better at this transcription part of that process because it's a tool specifically built for transcribing as part of its core capabilities. So definitely leverage those tools to help you record and transcribe that conversation.
Yeah, we currently use and pay for Fireflies, which it's pretty good, and it integrates nicely with HubSpot. So it logs, if you have a conversation with someone, it logs the notes from that recording under the notes section, under that contact within HubSpot. It also automatically creates tasks as well. I haven't found that, amazingly helpful, but maybe if you train it right, it could be good. For those of you who are thrifty, yeah, Google Meet. If you use Google Meet, I know there's a lot of people canceling their Zoom subscriptions and just using Google Meet instead. They are now transcribing things for you for free. So Kev, maybe that's something we want to look at. I think that if you use Apollo as well, apollo.io, I believe that even on the free version, at least you used to, I'm not sure now, but you get their meeting transcription tool for free as well, and it does some like sentiment analysis there too, which is pretty cool. So if you're looking to be a little thrifty, have a look at those options as well. You probably don't need to start with a paid one. There's some good free ones out there.
Now is the steps in the process where you can really start to lean a lot heavier on AI. So once you have these transcripts, and I emphasize again, you need high quality transcripts, you can start to feed these into tools like ChatGPT to summarize for you. So you can ask it to generate themes, key themes that came out, key insights that came out, and also to pull direct quotes from those conversations and timestamps as it goes through that process, so that you can easily check back to see where those parts came from and if in fact that insight was correct. And it also can help you identify key points and pain points very quickly. You can ask that similar question, but again, I would emphasize just prompting it to give you those quotes and timestamps and interviews references specifically, so that you can go back and have a look at exactly where that came from and if that sentiment really matches what is being summarized out of ChatGPT.
Yeah, a business that we worked with recently, they wanted to do this work and start collecting like this firsthand data, qualitative data from customer interviews. So they got their customer success managers to check in with their clients. They arranged a site visit. And in addition, just checking in how they were going, they started to ask these questions. And with their permission, they just used their note recording app on their iPhone to record this. Then when they got back to the office, they just uploaded it to something like Descript, which transcribed it for them. So there's ways that you can equip others who are more inclined to have that conversation, whether in customer success, to collect that information for you. Of course, ideally, we would love the marketers to be the one who are doing it, because I think it frames the way you ask these questions a little differently, but we're going to take what we can get. And I know that in that example that I gave, the insights that they got were enormously valuable for them in reshaping their positioning and messaging, and ultimately how they've gone to market and won. So just do something that really, really works for you. A simple phone recording app with your client's permission is a great way to start.
And I think that leads nicely into the next step in the process, which is to validate manually the findings and the summaries and cross-check for nuance. It's important to go back and do that process because, as you said, George, potentially it's a CS team member, it's someone in sales who's had that initial conversation, and they might pass on some insights from that conversation that's really reading between the lines and is a bit harder for a tool like ChatGPT to find that additional context. So potentially blending in those points as well and asking ChatGPT to reframe its summaries in light of those insights could be important. And you have to manually potentially add some of those insights into the list of summary points that comes out of something like ChatGPT. From there, it's an easy process to then document the findings. Obviously, we talk a lot about the dream customer avatar template that comes in the Be Ready stage in the B2B incubator process, and it's also shared in past episodes that we've done. But it's important to give ChatGPT something that it can go off. So any tools like ChatGPT, if you give it a template, if you feed in a template and you ask it to complete that avatar, that template in the same structure, it's going to give you a lot better result because it's going to pull out the points that you definitely want covered. and it will adapt that to the information that you've provided to it. So that will really help you speed up that process and building up your dream customer avatars, particularly if you have more than one, as we tend to have in the B2B process where there's multiple people in that buying committee. Potentially you need quite a few different dream customer avatars on top of the individuals that are in a buying committee as well. But just again, be sure to get ChatGPT to have a first run at it with a template that you've already fed into it, and then go back and cross-check and validate that as well.
If you're paying for ChatGPT as well, you can now create projects where you can basically create your own custom GPT and upload files for it to reference. You could use every interview you have as a file that this custom GPT looks at, and it's basically like your customer research brain. So every time you get customer insights, feed it in there so it just has more and more data to draw on. And then with some good handy prompts and instructions, you can start to use that to really dive into those customer research insights. So often just like a more actionable way of looking into that data rather than it just sitting in a spreadsheet and you manually trawling through it is just creating this growing, evolving brain within ChatGPT. Just a little handy tip there.
And then you're there, listeners. That's the process. Basically, the final step is just sharing those insights across the different teams to enable that better alignment between yourselves and marketing, product, sales, content teams, CS teams, whatever is applicable in your organization. You can even use AI at this step to help you frame the final insights and dream customer avatars in a way that's relevant to each team, that's relevant to their considerations at each stage of the business process and function. But pretty much you're there. Hopefully you're going off the same insights and it's been collected to a certain volume. There's a few things to watch out for as you go through this process though. The first being that, again, this only really works if you have enough qualitative data to feed in to something like ChatGPT to summarize. So in this case, you need to have enough customer interview transcripts. You can't just have one or two. It's not going to be deep enough for it to really draw out those similar pain points and consistent messaging quotes and things like that you could potentially use down the track. The more you have, the better. But certainly you need to keep in mind that you need to have enough qualitative data for this to really work with a tool like ChatGPT. We have spoken a lot about having to cross-check most things, if not everything, to ensure that the information is correct and no nuances are lost. That's just the world of AI that we live in now. It certainly shouldn't be something that you go in with the expectation that a 5-hour process is now going to be 5 minutes. It's more likely to be 1 or 2 hours instead of 5 hours, but that's still a big time saving, and which means you could potentially double the amount of interviews you do in the same amount of time.
I'll just jump in here, Kevin. I'll say that's why it's so important when you said earlier that you should prompt it to pull direct quotes from those transcripts whenever it's making a point. So if it's making a point and saying your customers are framing the problem like XYZ, ask it for both the time codes from those transcripts so you can go back and manually check them, because hallucination is still an issue. I find, Kevin, that it tends to hallucinate more when you ask it to do too many things at once. So if you're giving it like a bunch of questions to work through, it's more likely to take the easy route out versus just asking like kind of one question at a time. It tends to get deeper and give you more accurate information. So make sure you cross-check. Don't ask too much from it all at once.
A bit like a human, isn't it, George? Too many things on the plate and it just takes the easy route. But, it's a very good point. Make sure to step through with maybe a sequence of prompts to get the best results. I think the next thing to watch out for is, again, garbage in, garbage out. As the old saying goes, there's no shortcuts to having good customer interviews and good questions that have been honed over that process of running those customer interviews. That's really going to uncover all the things you need to know about your ICPs, firmographics, pain points, and ideal states, so that you can have all that recorded in the transcripts that ultimately go into ChatGPT or something like that to pull out those insights that you need. And finally, there's no substitute for customer voices. So make sure to keep tabs of those good quotes, even as you're doing the customer interviews yourself. Don't expect that ChatGPT will pick up on all the good quotes that you found in the moment. It probably will pick up most of them, remember, sometimes we'll miss some. It's always a good habit to make sure to keep tabs yourself on those good quotes and to use that same language back to customers at the end of the day in your marketing activity, in your communications with your customers, because they're really going to be on the key points that are going to sell in your brand and your business and your offerings to those customers.
Yeah, great point. The direct quotes are really what should reflect your positioning and then ultimately inform your messaging as well. We want to frame our business in a way that we know our customers already understand, and finding out the words that they use to describe the category that we're in, like that's really important. And then the messaging, the unique value propositions that we have, the unique things they love about our product, the unique benefits, use their words. That's what we want to reflect back to them. And that's why this process of extracting real quotes, real insights is enormously valuable.
All right, listeners, that's how you can use AI to help your customer research process. Key takeaways from this episode: AI is a force multiplier, but not a replacement for doing the work. You still need to gather the qualitative data through well-designed customer interviews to feed into AI tools. Once you have it, though, you can utilize AI tools to help build a quick and strong summary and understanding of your dream customers. The Be Ready principles, the frameworks, the processes that we've talked about still all apply. It's just a little easier to undertake that summary work with those AI tools now at your disposal.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, listeners and viewers, as always, you can find the links to everything that we discussed in the show notes. As always, we're so grateful that each week more and more marketers are tuning in every Monday to the B2B Playbook. If you could ask one thing, it would be to please pass the show on to someone you think would get value from it. That's a huge help. And please check us out on YouTube. We really, really appreciate it. Take care. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, listeners. Catch you next week.
Thank you, George. Thank you, listeners and viewers. Take care and catch you all next week.